All right, well, let's move on to another concern. Proponents of longer school days and more days per year is something being promoted in many states and districts. Even our Secretary of Education, Arne Duncan, favors this, especially for poor achieving districts. They have proposed the idea of an additional semester of 20 days during which fewer courses are offered with deeper concentration. This could enrich student academic strength or provide concentrated attention to improve student ability and performance in his or her weaker areas. Does this idea make sense? In some European countries, they alternate long days and shorter days. For example, 3 days a week, students would attend school for 7 hours, and 2 days a week for 4 hours. Other countries have students attend school for 7 hours a day for 9 days and have 3-day weekends off every other weekend. What are your thoughts about these options under these adapted alternative calendars? Longer school days, more school days? See any merit in any direction there? You're shaking no.
No, I think that's way too confusing. For me personally, I like having a steady schedule and having like days where you're in school for 5 hours and then days when you're in school for 3 hours does not seem like a good thing for me. I don't think it's healthy, really, because I feel like people, especially students, they need a good pattern and a good like patterned lifestyle to live by. And I think this would be very disturbing in, students working after school and students taking part in sports. I just feel like it would be too confusing for students.
Okay. Anyone else have a thought on that?
I wouldn't mind it. Obviously the day is getting out 4 hours, but I do think that a lot of us do activities outside of school. So me being that I play sports, I think that it would, there'd be a problem. In different countries, they don't really have high school sports. Here we do have high school sports, and I think that juggling the longer school day and athletics and other clubs, it would be difficult.
Well, it's true in other countries. They don't see it as the school's obligation to provide athletics, but they still have athletics. They run them through clubs. I mean, they do that with soccer all over Europe, all over the world. So now, Mr. Lowell, you've been a coach. What do you think?
Sure. I mean, I don't think athletics should drive what we do in the classroom. I mean, when it comes down to it, I believe that if it makes sense because for educational purposes, that athletics can adapt to that situation. As a coach, head coach of the boys track team, I feel very strongly about the merits of athletics, but I believe that the purpose of the school is first and foremost the education of our students. And if we can improve that, we'll find a way to fit the sports in. We'll find a way to make it work.
Mrs. Forsstrom, any thoughts?
I wish I had an answer. I also see the merits of sports because I think that it's really important that students have that outlet. While it will be challenging to make a schedule that fits everybody's needs, I think that it's entirely possible and that they would just have to make it work, because I think that we would want to keep all of the same components of the school experience, but also make it educationally more sound.
I mean, it's
stronger.
Naturally one has to address extracurricular activities, particularly athletics, but I think we could meet their needs, as you have said, and we have to include drama. We have to include all of these other activities that we encourage students to do as they build up their resumes to further their education and further their opportunities in life. But it definitely would require some compromising.
They're also, I think, they're highly motivating for students to come to school in the first place, to put in the effort and the required work into their academics as well. I know, some students, I would have taken today off, but I have a game today, so I'm going to be in here today, and I'm going to get that extra education.
Finally, let's go to one more point. If any of these proposals were to be implemented, additional funding would be needed. From where would these funds come? Would it require more engagement and support by state and federal government in order to work successfully? Where do you think? Sooner or later, it all comes down to dollars.
Absolutely. It's going to require funding, and I think obviously in our own town here in Monroe, funding has been an issue in the past, and I think that it's unrealistic to expect that you're going to get an increase in funding, especially where the economy is right now, unless, big caveat, unless race to the top funding and national funding from Washington, D.C. is able to be channeled into these type of programs.
But a consequence of that could be the traditional New England loss of each town has its own autonomy over its own school district. And that's a tough political sell, I would think. Do either of you people have a thought about that?
I think that if we did change the calendar not to have full vacations in the summertime, we would definitely have to reconstruct the building in order to accommodate that, in the sense that we would have to put in air condition, definitely, because I think it would be not very beneficial for students to be coming to school and then be very hot and, distracted by the heat, and that wouldn't benefit it at all. So we would have to
face that in September and June.
Right, we would have to add in air conditioning. That would add a lot of money to, the budget, and it would just be very difficult, especially for our school.
What do you think, John?
I definitely agree. I guess, the taxpayers would be paying more. I really don't know much about this, but I guess the tax.
Well, if it came from the state and federal, it would broaden, we would end up moving more and more away from local districts and broader managed districts, I would assume. And so government in general, if it's flipping a bigger chunk of the bill, is going to want a little more voice in overseeing what's done.
There are some states already that pool their tax resources and then distribute them basically equally to each district as well.
But that would have to be changed for every state.
No, yeah. I think the move right now is looking at national change. That's one of the reasons why we are taking on this topic.
And national standards are coming out in English and history, and there is a big push for national standards.
Yeah.
So the future of education is definitely in flux.
And inevitably is going to encounter change, maybe with an optimistic experimentation attitude. We'll have to wait and see.
Right.
Well, I regret that I have to close our discussion on that point. I want to thank Mrs. Forster, Mr. Lowe, Natalie, and John for sharing their thoughts on this controversial issue. On behalf of the panel and the Masick Report, I want to thank our viewers for sharing time with us. I hope our discussion has motivated you to think about the issue of alternative school year calendar, and you have found in our thoughts and ideas that will motivate you to share your ideas and opinions with others. We wish you well and look forward to you joining us for our upcoming shows.